Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. It's a privilege and a pleasure to have you join us today, and we look forward to your participation as we go throughout today's webinar. Today's topic is 6 breakthrough revenue growth innovations that you can deploy with your customers. So let me break this apart if I can for you. We talk about the word breakthrough. What we're going to do is we're going to discuss 6 revenue growth innovations that you may never have heard of before. You may not be deploying. So they're going to be innovative, they're going to be new, and they're going to be things that you can apply to your company today. Secondly, we're going to talk about something that you can use with your current customers. Because as we find working with many B2B companies throughout North America, is they're looking for ways to actually increase their wallet share with current customers. Some new customers may be hesitant to make decisions right now, given the COVID-19 and the economic environment that we're dealing with today. So for many of you, going back to your current customers may be the best way for you to increase revenue. It may be also a good opportunity for you to rethink and re-nourish your wallet share that you have with every current customer. So again, thank you for joining us. And today, this webinar will be recorded. So if you want to share this webinar with management or peers or colleagues, we're going to give you an opportunity to do that. As we have the webinar, with every webinar that we have with On-Demand Advisors, we encourage your participation. So we're going to have a number of polls. We're also going to ask you to post your questions, and I'll make sure that I get to your questions. So if some reason happens, which has been happening quite often, where we have too many questions to get through for the webinar, I'll make sure I follow up with you one-on-one and address those questions, because every question is important, every question is relevant. So again, thank you for joining us. So let's get started. Just as you mentioned, as I mentioned, I'm Bob Jakowski, and Craig Remy and I co-founded our company 12 years ago. And we are a global revenue acceleration agency. What that basically means is that we help executives like yourself really think through how to scale and grow revenue and do it so that it's predictable, so that it's scalable, and so that it's consistent, and so that it's capital efficient. So those are really important assets that we look at, because what we find is that every executive today is looking for a playbook on revenue growth. How do you do that in a definitive way? How do you do that so that you can have predictability, not only for yourselves, so you can make the proper investments, but also for your investors and for your other stakeholders? How do you do that so it's capital efficient, so that you can actually eliminate a lot of the guesswork, perhaps a lot of the dead ends that you can get into if you make investments and find out that they're not giving you the ROI paying off? So for myself, I've been a serial CEO for public and private companies in Silicon Valley, and I've helped build 10 B2B technology and services companies at different stages. Craig also has an outstanding record in terms of leading companies, in many cases as Chief Marketing Officer, but he's also had a tremendous amount of experience in terms of doing global branding for large companies like Google, like Levi Strauss, Nike, Disney, and many other companies. So we bring a great mix in terms of ourselves and also our team that we have in terms of thinking strategically through what it's going to take to increase revenue. As many of you may know, you may come at this from a marketing perspective, from a sales perspective, from a business development perspective, and so forth. This is a connected process. So when we think about revenue growth, revenue creation, it really spans across all these different areas. So you've got to create the opportunities in marketing, throughout marketing programs. You've got to have the right way to engage with your clients, whether it be self-service, whether it be inside sales, field sales, or working with partners. And you've got to service those clients. And that's a connected process from your client's perspective. So it's really, really important to connect all the dots and do that efficiently and effectively. So as we get started in today's webinar, I'd like to start with a poll. And if you would participate, we very much appreciate it. So let me go ahead and launch this poll with you. So here's the question. How do you want to increase your revenue and profitability per customer right now, today, in 2020? Do you want to increase usage of your existing services and solutions? Do you want to add additional current solutions or services? Do you want to add additional services, perhaps new services that you're thinking about bringing to market? Do you want to launch new products or solutions? And finally, do you want to offer a partner solution to your customers? So these are all different ways that you can think about increasing your revenue and profitability for each of your customers. As we call it, wallet share, which is an important ingredient for all of us. So I'll just keep the poll open here for a couple more seconds, and then I'll share the results with everybody attending today's webinar. Okay, perfect. So let me go ahead and share the results. So overwhelmingly, 56% of you stated that increasing usage of existing services and solutions is your number one objective. Another 11% stated that you want to add additional current products or solutions. 22% stated you wanted to add additional new services, which is great. And 11% stated you wanted to launch new products or solutions and upsell those to your customers. So that's fantastic. We're going to discuss how to do every one of these today. So thank you for your participation. As many of you may know, if you've been repeat attendees for our webinars that we have on revenue growth, how to do this in the predictable and scalable way that we're talking about, we've created the revenue acceleration map. And this map is really the best practices approach that you can deploy at your company on how to scale revenue in this connected process. So areas 1 and 2 are about strategy and thinking through how you're going to create these 3 funnels between marketing, lead conversion, and sales. And level 3 and 4 is all about marketing, your marketing execution. How do you scale up and how do you actually create these first 2 funnels? 5 and 6 is about sales execution, and making sure that you fill and master the CRM or sales funnel. And number 7 is what we call revenue vectors for growth. So for today's webinar, we're not going to spend a lot of time on the revenue acceleration map and these best practices, but we'll be happy to share this map with all of the attendees today's webinar, and talk to you separately as far as how you can apply this, because it's phenomenal. We work with over 300 different B2B companies at different stages to apply these fundamentals and to improve on them. So we're very serial at what we do at On Demand Advisors. When we think about your current customers, we're always thinking about your ability to upsell and cross-sell your current customers. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk through that and 6 really unique ways to do that. But if you wanted to add, let's say, an additional $5 million of revenue, and your typical ACV or transaction value would be $50,000, you know that you need to close 100 new transactions this year. And of course, you can see what the conversion rates are over here in terms of your CRM funnel, and you can see the conversion rates that you have over here in terms of your lead management or lead conversion funnel, and this would be your marketing funnel. So we know that to achieve this goal, we're going to need to create 75 new market qualified leads every month. We're going to need to convert those into 29 sales qualified leads every month, and we're going to have to close 8 of those into net new transactions with customers every month. This helps keep you on track. This is what we call revenue engineering. This is what we call funnel math. And it really is the way that you start thinking about how you're going to deliver the results on a consistent way going forward. So anyway, these are the 3 funnels. As you can see, they're all interconnected. And now what we want to do is talk about these 6 revenue growth innovations and how you can implement them. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to cover each of these innovations. We're going to also give you specific examples of clients that we work with today to achieve these innovations in this growth. And then finally, we're going to talk about what's the formula for implementing these innovations at your company. What would it take for us to go through that process to make that happen? So these, I think you'll find very interesting, leveraging the power of internal champions. So you've got champions all over. If you've been providing your services or your solutions for a number of years, you do have lots of champions out there. You may not know them, or you might not know which ones are your champions, but we're going to talk about that process and how do you actually identify them and how do you actually create champions. Number two, we're going to talk about creating the whole solution. Whatever solution you offer to your clients today, it's not complete. So it's just like a house. You built a ranch-style house, and now you want to add a second floor. Then you want to add on a third floor. Before you know it, you're looking at a 20-story structure, because there are a lot of things we're going to talk about today that you can add to the mix with your current services and solutions to expand your offerings that you have with your clients. Number three is elevating your solution for decision makers. And this is really important. Many of you today may offer different solutions. You may offer analytics solutions. You may offer operational solutions. You may offer solutions that help in the area of compliance. You may offer value-added services. Whatever those are great solutions that you offer today. But one of the things that we found as we work with many companies is that they're very good at offering those solutions and talking about the benefits, but sometimes they forget the decision maker and what's in it for the decision maker. So we're going to talk about how you elevate the importance in engagement with decision makers, not just in terms of being the signer for that transaction or agreement with you, but also being personally interested in terms of what you're doing and giving them visibility to that. Number four is bundling your solutions and services differently. And we're going to talk about that. When I was the chief operating officer at a company called Silicon Energy, and I first came in to that company, we had 19 different point solutions. I knew there was no way we could adequately sell 19 different point solutions, and the data actually proved that out. So I needed to think about that bundle differently, and we're going to walk you through some different ways that you can think about that. Number five is getting customers to sell customers. The number one peer group, the number one reference group with everybody that you can pull out there is going to be their colleagues, people just like themselves at other companies. And number six is really going to be very intriguing, which is treating customers as prospects. So I'm sure these are all excellent, intriguing, provocative titles. And so we're going to walk you through each one and look forward to your questions. So let's talk about the first one, leveraging the power of internal champions. So when you provide your solutions into companies, into multiple groups, you may find that you only have one group. You may find that you've used a land and expand strategy where one group, for instance, of engineers is using your solutions today for engineering performance management. But there are other groups, other parts of that organization that perhaps don't know you, don't know these solutions. They may be in other theaters. They may be over in Asia Pac. They may be in EMEA. They may be somewhere else. And so it's really important to think about how do you actually have a strategy to leverage the power of internal champions. So what we want to do is walk you through an example. One of our clients is Technical Toolboxes, and they are a leader in engineering performance solutions for engineers in the oil and gas industry. So they provide a great selection of engineering mission critical applications to actually help engineers throughout every step of the pipelining life cycle that they have. So historically, they provided solutions for specific engineering projects or needs. And then most recently, they've done a great job expanding that suite to include what they call the hub, which is a solution that spans across all of the different applications, connects them, and really helps spur engineering performance excellence and consistency across that global engineering team. So that's really been incredible additions that they have. And so what we've had an opportunity to do is to say, how do we remessage that? How do we elevate this? So as we talked about leveraging the power of internal champions. So they already have many internal users today. They've got over 4,000 different users and over 400 different oil and gas operators and service providers. And so what we wanted to do is really look at that and say, how do we determine who are the best users of our solutions out there today? So we wanted to go through a methodology to do that. And what we did is we've sat down with them and we've been working with them to map out the entire target organization and every customer. So using Zoom Info, which you may know of, we can look at to see who are the users of their solutions today, engage with those users and find out how they're using the solution, look at who reports to those individuals and what the upper structure is above them, and start identifying those users that not only use those solutions in a fantastic way, but also have quantified the ROI and the value of those solutions. So that's the first step. The second step is really developing user champions. So when we think about developing user champions, that's something all of us can do. So it's not only just looking at and identifying who are the champions, but how do you develop champions? So what you look at is what's the value that this solution is giving to their organization. And when you look at working with different users out there or different operators of your solution, you have a chance to really lead and mentor their peers. So you're going to give them an opportunity to do that. You're going to give them the opportunity to also be elevated within the organization by recognizing their experience. And you even give them the opportunity to perhaps to be your lead for your solution for the value to their enterprise. What I mean by that, for instance, at one of our organizations here at Technical Toolboxes, one of their clients is a user at TC Energy, and his name is Larry. And Larry has done a phenomenal job utilizing their pipeline toolbox at TC Energy. So Larry has done a webinar together with them to talk about how he's using pipeline toolbox to other interested parties across the oil and gas industry. But he also has become an advocate to show how his company could benefit from the value and the benefits and the hard dollars that are saved in terms of using pipeline toolbox within TC Energy. So he basically checks off all the boxes here in terms of being able to be leveraged both inside and outside the company. And then finally, creating reasons to get higher up in the account. So as you think about having user champions out there, oftentimes they may be the unsung heroes in these accounts. And so you have an opportunity to elevate the value inside the company through the tangible results, the ROI, and the addressing of critical KPIs for that company, key performance indicators. So that's the first thing we wanted to talk about. Let's talk about the second one, creating the whole solution that your customer wants. What's interesting, as we worked with many, many different companies, and as Craig and I have built companies in Silicon Valley that have been very successful, is we realized that we were never done with the solution. So when you think about this, today, each of you are providing a partial solution or service to your clients. It may look like it's complete, but it's not. So just think back and think about what are the additional capabilities or services that you could offer to your clients to be more successful. So for instance, if you think about an example, if you think about Jeffrey Moore talks about the adoption curve that happens with most technology and most solutions that you'll see out there today and services. So you've got the innovators at the very beginning, you've got the early majority, you've got the late majority, and then you have the laggards. And that's your bell curve. But what's interesting about this is that each of those groups, even though it may be the same solution, may require a different service. So for the innovators, it's about getting the solution in there and giving them the services to actually make them referenceable lighthouse accounts. For the early majority, it's about helping them think through how you're going to methodically help them put in the solution and achieve the results. For the late majority, they may be talking about how you're going to eliminate or minimize their risk. And you may be doing things like fixed bid contracts. You may be doing things like guaranteed success. You may be in a position where you have lots and lots of similar referenceable accounts that take away that fear. And for the laggards, it may be that you don't implement the solution in their account. It may be that you offer it as a service so that they don't have to worry about managing that solution in the first place. They just want the service. So that would be a way to think about how you can strategically look at your services based upon the type of clients that you're working with. So let's talk about a couple more examples in terms of completing the whole solution. AvidXchange is one of our premier clients that we work with. They are a leader, a SaaS leader, solution as software as a service, provider of accounts payable, invoice processing, and payment solutions. And as we looked at working with them and helped them scale their company. And by the way, the one thing that was really phenomenal as we worked with AvidXchange is we helped them double revenue every year going forward. So they've been very successful. In a 4-year period of time, they went from $6.5 million in annual revenue to $65 million in annual revenue. And so we just had the privilege and the pleasure of really helping put in that DNA, put in that revenue growth engine and making that happen. But one of the things that we found as we were working with AvidXchange and they were working with their clients is that all of the invoice information for every one of their clients was being processed by them. But as you looked at the information that's in the invoices, it has to do with payment of leases, payment of utilities expenses, payment of telecommunication costs, payment for IT. And what we realized is that there were additional services that could be offered in terms of helping their clients manage those critical costs. So what they ended up doing was building analytics cubes around utility costs, telecommunication costs, IT expenses, and other categories, and then be able to provide the analysis and support to actually help in the negotiations and cost reduction for each of those areas. It'd also be great for clients to be able to benchmark their costs against other clients and do that using the same information that was being processed in a transactional way. So this is a great example of expanding the pie, expanding their solution. Let's talk about another company. So as many of you may know, I was the CEO and Craig was the CMO at Intech, a software as a service provider of accounting and financial management solutions. And what we ended up doing is we said, how do we create this bigger solution that our clients want? Well, one thing that we did is we partnered with Salesforce. So we were the back office, Salesforce was the front office. So together we could offer and provide one integrated front office and back office solution. In fact, it became so popular for all of our target audiences that we actually were able to co-locate salespeople together to provide one integrated story, one integrated solution for our joint customers. Another thing that we did that was really innovative in terms of looking at Intech is we said, you know, we've got these wonderful accounting solutions, but we may not have the total solution as we look at different verticals or industries. One of those industries that we wanted to penetrate is the professional services industry. And so what we realized is that we didn't offer some of the capabilities that you would typically find with PSO or professional service operation, such as managing billing and engagement with clients and doing a lot of the project management and capital projects that needed to be managed with these clients. So what we ended up doing is we partnered with OpenAir. And we actually private labeled OpenAir as part of our suite and took that to market together with OpenAir. So that was a great way for us as a software as a service company to look at combining other third-party services or solutions into ours and provide what the customer wanted, which is a complete solution. Another way that we did this is since our key executive that we work with is typically the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer for the company, we decided that even though we were providing wonderful, efficient financial management solutions and optimized processes, we needed to provide visually the dashboards that CFOs wanted. We also needed to extract the KPIs that CFOs were looking for to run their business and give them the insight that they were looking for. Once we did that, it completely changed the way we presented our solution to our target audience. All we needed was a CFO to be involved in the first hour of the presentation, and then the rest of the time was spent with the team talking about how we're going to optimize their accounting and financial functions at the company. But the CFO really got to see exactly what they wanted, which is give me a dashboard snapshot on the things that are important to me to run the enterprise from a financial perspective. So very successful in terms of providing that solution. Let's give you a third example. Another one of our clients is a company called Integrity. They provide asset integrity management solutions in the oil and gas industry. So one of the things that they do a wonderful job as a management team is really thinking outside the box and thinking about what else can they provide that's going to be a value-added service for their clients. So they have created a significant partner network. And so what we do is we think about, as they bring those partner solutions into the mix to provide that complete expanded solution to their customers, how do we actually help them create the sales tools that they need to take those solutions to market? How do we create a solution microsite? So for instance, if they're going to offer for pipelines, if they're going to offer specific solutions to look at dents and abrasions and things that could happen to pipelines today, how do we provide a microsite for that partner solution that could be transactional? And then finally, creating the demand generation programs, campaigns, and engine to create leads so that there's going to be tremendous upsell opportunity for current clients as well as new clients with these partner solutions. So those are three different examples that I wanted to share with everybody today in terms of how you can create the whole solution, thinking outside the box. So as we talked about, just a formula here, how to do that. One way is to look at what are the key industries and personas, the titles that you want to focus on, mapping out your solutions to support those personas and functions, identifying what solutions are complementary to your solution. So as we did with Open Air, we private labeled their solution. It could be embedded or it could be a partner co-op. And then creating the partnership structure for success and then developing the tools, because what we found with many partnerships out there is they are somewhat dormant. In other words, they haven't been activated because the sales tools haven't been created, the solution destination hasn't been created, and the demand generation engine to create joint leads for both organizations has not been created. So let's talk about number three. Number three is really fantastic from the perspective of elevating your solution for your decision makers. So when you think about your services or solutions today, how do you offer your solution to the C-suite? How do you make it important and relevant? I always find with a lot of companies, they either have a nice to have or a must have solution. So sometimes what you have to look at is, how do you make your solution a must have solution? If only 5 different enterprise procurements will happen at this company, let's say that company is Vecto this year, and for the month of this month that we have right now in August, if they're only going to buy 5 things, how do you make sure that yours is one of the 5 things that they get done? So when you think about the C-suite, you think about providing your solution and how they're going to benefit from your solution or service, and how you're going to give them the insight in the progress or results that your service or solution is going to be providing or driving for their company. So let's talk about this. Another one of our clients is Visibility Software. And Visibility Software does an outstanding job of providing applicant tracking, this would be recruiting, and training management solutions to their clients. And so as we've worked with Visibility Software and worked with their management team, we noticed that there was an opportunity to elevate the presentation to the VP of HR and to the management team. And so working together with them, we've looked at what are some of the key dashboards that will help provide both efficiency and effectiveness KPIs that are important in looking at how do you onboard, well, first of all, how do you recruit talent? How do you onboard that talent? How do you train that talent? And then finally, how do you manage that talent? And so what we're really doing is giving them true insight in terms of this through these dashboards and reports. And we also have had the opportunity to bundle that into a talent management suite so that you've got both talent management, acquisition, development and onboarding, and insights all available in the one suite. So again, we didn't look at deconstructing what they had. We looked at what they had as far as building blocks and build off that. And that's been a phenomenal opportunity for us to do that. So when we think about elevating your solution for decision makers, some of the steps to think about, or the formula for doing this, is to identify the specific outcomes that your decision maker or executives are looking for, identifying the KPIs or metrics that once monitored will lead to these outcomes. In many cases, we'll actually help our clients conduct a buyer intelligence survey with decision makers to validate and prioritize these outcomes, these KPIs, and these metrics, and then to present these analytics in the most compelling fashion for their clients. Are those dashboards, reports? Are they heat maps? Are they alerts and text? What's the right venue to provide this critical information for decision makers? All right, let's talk about number 4. Number 4 is bundling your solutions or services differently. So your customers and your sales team, as we always find, are going to sell what you give them to sell. So remember I talked about being the Chief Operating Officer at Silicon Energy. Well, once I was looking at drilling down on this, and I came aboard and started looking at how our customers were using these 19 different point solutions, I realized that many of our point solutions that we had invested in and engineered and created and launched weren't getting used by our community. So we needed to rethink how we bundle our solutions and services differently. So let me give you an example of another one of our clients, Dude Solutions in North Carolina. So they are an incredible company providing their solutions for facility and IT management to over 6,000 universities, colleges, and higher learning education institutions. And they're not unusual, where they started with one solution and then they added over time 15 different solutions. But what we found as we worked with their management team, that their average customer only had 2 to 3 of their solutions. We also found that it was difficult for their sales team to sell those 15 solutions because they were really different point solutions, and if they weren't sold initially, a lot of times there wasn't the follow-up sale to make that happen. So what we worked with them to do is to reorganize those solutions around different functional areas with key decision makers or persona. So for instance, in the technology area with IT, we found out that we could create a set of solutions out of that 15 focused on serving the needs of the CIO. And so that became really important. We also determined that at these universities and these campuses, that there was somebody in charge of events. So a number of their solutions just focused on events. So we wanted to provide an event management solution to them, as you could see from these different solutions. So this became a really logical way for us to do that. It also was an incredibly fantastic way for us to increase their revenue that they had per customer. Let me give you another example and another one of our clients. ICUC is a global social media management services company that serves the Fortune 1000. They just are an incredible company, and they provide a much needed service in the area of social media management services. So their customers could be a Starbucks, a Google, a Novartis, a Macy's. And what we found is that they were incredibly innovative, coming up with 2 to 4 new social media management services every year. But what we found is that with all these different services, it was becoming a very fragmented. So what we did is we said, how do we organize all these different services in a fundamentally different way? So we created something called the customer journey, which is a social customer journey for their customers. And we realized that when they would engage with their clients, there were 4 different phases that they would take every client through. And so the first one would be discovered. And so that became really important in terms of being able to be discovered. The second one was how to stand out. The third one was converting that to a sale. And finally, the last is growing the customer influence. And so as we worked through each of these different stages, it became really important for us to take their solutions and services and to provide those in each of these areas. So if we were thinking about social commerce or review management, we were essentially helping them monetize those social media management services and do that over here in terms of converting them to sales. So this became a really great way for us to help them talk to their customers and their prospects about all of their different offerings and the need to have those through the 4 different areas or journey stop points, milestones that you have. So when you think about bundling your solutions and services differently, these are different steps you can take. And we fundamentally help our clients walk through those different areas and think through that differently as we go through. Let's talk about number 5. Number 5 is really intriguing, which is getting customers to sell customers. So as we found, as we've done hundreds of these surveys to get in the head of decision makers and figure out what's important to them, the number one thing that they look for as far as mitigating risk is knowing that there are other peers that are using and benefiting from this solution or service. So that's the number one reference group that you have out there today. So when you think about how to do that, well, when we work with ICUC, that's something that they wanted to do. So what we ended up doing with them is creating monthly webinars featuring client testimonials and demonstrations. There's nothing better than to have somebody who's heading up social media management services at Google present what they're doing to the heads of social media management services at other Fortune 1000 companies. This became phenomenally successful as we worked with them. The second thing that we did was help give them the deliverables that they needed to go out there and do performance improvement or health check meetings with their customers. Those always gave opportunities for looking at opportunities to upsell either additional services or new services to their clients. And then finally, we helped them implement a reference program where they knew who the references that they had across all of their global customers. So a tier 1 customer would be somebody that had demonstrable ROI and case studies. Tier 2 would be somebody who would say great things about ICUC. And tier 3 was somebody that was still on that path to customer satisfaction, and we needed to focus our energy on that. Let me share one more client that we work with in this area. And instead of customers selling customers, we had partners selling partners. So eBuilder is a provider of capital management program solutions, and their platform would be leveraged by large systems integrators. So these large system integrators could be like Bechtel, Jacobs Engineering, AECOM, and so forth. And so they would go out and they would use their platform and they would implement a large transportation system in Chicago, for instance. And that became a great success story that they could talk about. But one of the things that we found interesting is if that was accomplished with a partner like AECOM, that we said, well, how many other program managers are out there at AECOM that we could contact and share the story with? And we found that the number could be anywhere from 500 to 1,000 other program managers. So what we did with them is we basically put on a webinar series for internal program managers at AECOM to talk about the success story of implementing this joint solution in Chicago, how this was facilitated across the teams that worked together in collaboration, and what the results were that were achieved. And what was interesting as we started doing this is that this would create anywhere from 5 new opportunities every time we did one of these presentations. So just a great way to leverage, again, champions that we had, in this case, within these partner network. So that's number 5. And number 6 is treating customers as prospects. And this is kind of interesting because people think, well, if they're a customer, why would we want to treat them as a prospect? Well, think about this. When somebody becomes a customer, in many cases, they may not get the same information that prospects do. They may not always hear about some of the new solutions that you offer, some of the new innovations. And so when you've got this momentum that you've achieved in earning the business with a new customer, what we look at is keeping that momentum going. And so what's the key to that? Well, to keep the courtship going, as we talk about it, is communicating every week with your customers about your solutions, advancements, new technologies, new services, and success stories. So as we did, for instance, with ICUC, creating a monthly webinar series for your customers can be extremely important because then they feel like they're really up to speed. It's not unusual for us to talk to a client and then talk to their customers and find out their customers don't know who they are today because maybe they invested in the solution 10 years ago, and they still think about that relationship from a historical perspective. So this is a great way for you to look at how do you actually provide value. It's also a great way to shine the light on these internal champions and to showcase their success with your services and solutions that you have today. So let's just recap what we talked about here today. And that is 6 revenue growth innovations that you can use today. Leveraging the power of internal champions. So if you've got them, you want to leverage that. If you don't, you want to create internal champions. Number 2 is creating the whole solution. So no matter how much you think you're completed, there's always more that can be done for your customers and for your clients. Number 3 is elevating your solution for decision makers, increasing the importance of that and getting them involved in terms of thinking through how this solution, your solution or service is going to benefit them. Number 4 is bundling your solutions and services differently, as we talked about. Number 5 is getting customers to sell customers. There's nothing more important and hard driving than doing that. And number 6 is treating customers as prospects. So what we'd like to do is get your input again, and let's ask you what your primary takeaway is from these innovations we talked about. So give us your input, if you would. When you think about your primary takeaway, what's the most important thing that resonates with you today from today's webinar? Is it the ability for you to leverage the power of internal champions? Is it to create the whole solution for your customers? Is it elevating your solution for decision makers? Is it thinking through and bundling your solutions or services differently? Or is it getting customers to sell customers? So go ahead and take a few moments if you could and weigh in. We'd love to get your feedback as we do this and think through, where's the power in terms of today's knowledge, insight, best practices, and how can that be applied to your company today? Okay, so thank you everybody for participating. Let's go ahead and now close this poll off and share the results. So 14% of you stated that the real takeaway is creating the whole solution for your customers. The leader on this is elevating your solution for decision makers. 57% of you stated that's the most important. And then 29% of you stated that bundling your solutions or services differently. So thank you very much. We hope that wherever you came down in terms of your priorities, you've got valuable information from today's webinar in terms of how to go ahead and apply this to your company. These can have a profound impact on your bottom line, not only in terms of your top line revenue growth, but also your bottom line profitability. So it's all about profit. It's all about earnings and how do you actually make those happen in a very demonstrable way. So at this time, what we'd like to do is we'd like to open this up for Q&A. And go ahead, if you would, post your questions that you have for us. And let's go ahead and address those questions. We look forward to that. So this first one is from Tom. Tom asked, how were you able to help AvidXchange double revenue every year? So Tom, thanks for that question. So AvidXchange, as we began working with them, as we sat down and looked at what they needed to do to put in a revenue growth engine, as we do, and they've been selling to the same and providing services and solutions to the same marketplace, a vertical, for about 12 years. And so what we looked at is, let's have a strategy to master and get to 100% of the target market in that vertical. So we helped them do that. The second thing we did is we helped them take their lead generation and put in a revenue growth engine that took leads from 38 leads per month to 350 leads per month and do that month in and month out. We also helped them get into not only win the first industry, but get involved in surveying and penetrating 6 more industries. And that became really incredibly insightful for them to grow their solutions for the industry. So it was one thing, it was a number of things. We helped them also optimize and move from a field sales model to an inside sales model and put in best practices. So those are some of the things that we did, Tom. Okay, what's the next question that we have from our audience today? Okay, this one is from Diana. Diana says, what will it take to implement one of these revenue growth innovations? Good question. Each of these are a bit different. What we're going to do, Diana, though, if you can just hold that question for a second, is when we get to our next slide, we're going to talk about an approach that we can work with you on to look at doing this, to take one of these revenue growth innovations that you think is a priority for your organization and determine how to best implement that today, immediately, for helping you this year. So thank you for that. Next question is from John. John asked, how will the microsite be used by Integrity? So we talked about building a microsite for the partner solutions that Integrity has. The nice thing about doing that is if sometimes you have transactional solutions that you're offering, as opposed to maybe strategic solutions, you want to be able to take them to a microsite where they can go through the complete buying process online and be able to do that very efficiently. It also provides you with very focused solution that you can provide to your customers and still connect that to your parent website. And then finally, depending upon the partnership that you have, a microsite could be very nice in terms of having that microsite active with the partnership, and perhaps when the partnership is over, to be able to disconnect it so that you don't have to worry about going through your entire website to be able to do that. So that's been phenomenally important and successful to us as we built this success. And then one last question that we have here is, I talked about a sales-driven website, and this is from Alice. Alice mentioned, what does it take to put in a sales-driven website? And so one of the things that we do is we think about your website and how you can drive the sales process on the website. And we've done that with one of our customers' technical toolboxes as an example that I talked about earlier. And what's great about that is it's transformational. It's taking a website that probably has really good information, but it's setting up the buyer's and seller's journey on the website and then making that happen. And we typically can do that in about 2 months. So thank you for that question. Very much appreciate that. So if you have any additional questions, of course, go ahead and post that to us. And let me come back to Diane's question, which is, how do you implement one of these revenue growth innovations for your company? Well, first of all, let's set up an appointment, and I'll give you our coordinates here in our next slide. Let's set up an appointment to talk about identifying the opportunities for revenue growth at your company. Let's think about a prioritized map to look at those opportunities and innovations that we just talked about to see which ones are the top priority for you. And then let's just pick one of those and implement one of those revenue growth innovations and measure the results that you're going to achieve. Once you do that, you can say what other opportunities that you want to get to. So it becomes this kind of self-funding process you can go forward and look at. So go ahead, here's my contact information, here's Craig's contact information. Send us an email or call us at our offices or visit our website and let us know what's the best way for us to connect with you, set up an appointment, and we'll talk about how could you activate one of these revenue growth innovations for your company today. In 2 weeks, we're also going to have another webinar that we're going to invite you to, and this is going to be about helping you optimize the revenue creation process. So as all of you know, underneath this process, there's always 3 things involved. There's people, process, and technology. We're going to talk about how the supporting infrastructure that you use or can use today will help you accelerate and complement this process of revenue growth. We're also going to talk about how do you gain visibility into your funnels, into your KPIs, and into what's going to close in the next several quarters. So I've always found, as I would be a CEO for a public company, there's always 2 questions that a board wants to know. The first one is always about, how's this quarter doing? How did you do this quarter? And the second one is, how does next quarter look? So being able to have that type of visibility in terms of your revenue creation process is just fundamental to your company. And so that will be another webinar that we're going to be inviting everybody to attend in the future. So again, thank you everybody on behalf of Craig, myself, and our entire On-Demand Advisors team that we have. We thank you for joining today's webinar. We hope that you found it profoundly impactful and useful, and that you can apply these 6 revenue growth innovations to your company today to achieve the success you're looking for. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.